Hello and welcome to Panel on Panels, a podcast about comics and all things comic-related. This is our inaugural episode, so I thought...
Comic books, not like stand-up comics.
Well,
yes.
I don't know. We'll see.
We could cross the lines.
With Patton Oswalt on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., who knows? We're
Anything
crossing.
is possible.
It's true. Anyway, this being our first episode, we're sort of using this as our origin story, if you will, to give you a sense of who we are, the people hosting the show, and the kind of things we're into, so... when we talk about stuff later, you'll have a general idea of who we are.
So we've already said that Origin Story is going to be the name of this episode, and you've already name-dropped the name of the episode.
Oh, yeah, the first of many, many times that I'll be doing that during this. That
will be the first of many sighs that you hear.
Calling the shot very early on.
The banter's already begun. All right, well, I'll start with myself. My name is John Campbell, and I'll be your host for, the next 6 months before we get pulled off of iTunes. Sitting
You
next.
think it's going to take that long?
Well, hopefully. Hope. Sitting next to me is Mike Gorgone.
Yes, I am Mike Gorgone. I am also a host on this podcast, and I am sitting next to John Campbell.
All right. Thank you, NPR. Next to him is Mr. Donovan Eilert.
Buenos dias, everybody. How are you today? Gorgone, you looking good today?
I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish.
Neither do I.
I didn't follow a word of that.
I just got a taco earlier, and that just stuck with me, so don't even know what it means.
The taco stuck in your craw, and you're just...
Yeah. Every once in a while, it comes
something
out.
About the mild spices, really.
That's right. It awakens something in me, gentlemen. This might be a strange occurrence here.
Well, the title of the show is not Panel on Tacos, so...
Oh. See, we were told...
Oh, you guys prepared for that?
Yeah.
No, with the...
I have a list of things I love about tacos.
Oh, man.
Oh, no. Oh, boy. We're going to have to shut this whole thing down.
Could we just do a second podcast later? We've got the equipment.
I think so.
Panel on tacos.
We'll just stop it here, record the tacos podcast real quick.
While we're thinking
and then
about it.
Come back to comics.
Excellent.
Well, I'm still ethnic, yes.
So, anyway, the three of us...
How long does that usually last for you, Donovan?
Until it leaves my system. I don't know.
Okay. Well,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
it's his superpower.
We're-
Oh, man, that's actually not a bad one.
Whatever
gain
food
the
you eat?
ethnicity of whatever food you eat. Add that to the list of, lame X-Men powers.
What happens if
Yes.
you eat two things at the one time, like a fusion kind of thing? Do
Oh,
you
yeah,
get
yeah,
biracial?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's wow.
Yeah. I think that's going to be
Your
good.
appearance doesn't change at all. It's
I
just,
think it would be.
skin tone.
I think it would be really hard to get around doing that one without losing your political correct kind of label.
Oh,
you know?
this is not a Marvel or DC comic.
Okay,
we're talking
great.
about.
Yeah, we're
No,
independent.
no.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
because you're going to go to stereotypes within the first few panels of that comic book.
Yeah, I think even Image would have a tough time saying yes to this. So anyway, the three of us are comic book fans for quite a while, if not lifelong, I'm going to go ahead and say.
Sure.
Well, at some point I was born, and a short time after that, I started reading comic books.
Right.
So yeah.
So in sort of looking at this as the introductory podcast, something I wanted to ask you guys is, do you remember the first comic book that you read or your first introduction to comic books as a medium?
We were having this discussion slightly before we started recording, and we get to the question of what do you deem a comic book? Because, yeah, I can distinctly remember early on reading, Calvin and Hobbes and, Garfield, and, do those count as comics? I mean, those are just comic strips, but that's certainly how I got introduced to the whole, here is a panel telling a story.
Right.
Here's the next panel telling a story.
Right. I think I think everybody has a little bit of, and that's pretty universal because it's in the paper and things
Sure.
like that. So I guess what I'm asking is, do you remember the first time that you experienced it as a larger storytelling medium, the comic
Sure.
book, if you will?
Yeah.
As opposed, once again, ignoring things like reprinted books of Garfield comics and stuff like that.
Well, I can't ignore those, John. There's a pile
No.
of them in my home.
Let's put that aside though, and just say when the first time you saw something, whether it be from Marvel or DC or even an introduction to the characters that eventually led you to the comics. Do you have any specific
I don't
memories?
think I
of
have. I remember which one I read first. I just remember my Uncle Paul, which I think you both know about, just telling me the stories of these characters and building them in my brain, and then handing me comics out of his closet, and I'm being like, wow, this is exactly what you're telling me. This is exactly what I imagined, and here she is, or here he is.
You
or
magical scribe. How have you
that's
produced such
that's exactly
wonders?
right. I mean, when you're
Right.
I was probably probably 9 or 10 when I really started digging deep into comics. So yeah, I don't think there was a first one. he read a lot of X-Men, so I'm going to say X-Men.
Okay.
X-Men.
I have a really weird one. The first comic that I remember, and this is before I could actually read, but the first comic I remember being purchased for me was a Swamp Thing comic.
Really?
Yeah, my dad got me. And I loved...
Alan Moore's Swamp Thing?
Not Alan Moore. This would have been the early 90s, so whoever was writing it then, I don't even remember.
So you would have probably been able to comprehend it as a child then.
Yes.
If it's not Alan Moore.
I'm having trouble comprehending some of Alan Moore's stuff as an adult. So.
Did your dad read Swamp Thing, or how did he come across Swamp Thing? Like, it wasn't Batman, it wasn't
Just a
Superman.
fan of swamps and things.
I have no idea. My dad bought me a lot of comics as a kid. That's definitely how I got into it. I don't know how it started with Swamp Thing, but I've always loved Swamp Thing as a result of it. And then I eventually the Swamp Thing movies and I watched the TV show. Do you guys remember the Swamp Thing TV show?
I do not.
Shall not bring your evil here.
Yes, exactly.
I think the closest I got was the Doug movie. Do you guys watch the Doug movie? And there was some kind of
Okay, please explain to me how this correlates.
No.
with the Swamp Thing.
There is a
was-
Swamp
they-
Thing in that movie.
Yeah, the villain-ish
Okay.
is their summer camp, right? And there's some bog creature.
Yeah, there is a swamp. There's a thing in the
Bog
swamp.
creature
in that
is the non-PC version of Swamp Thing.
Bog creature, yeah, because they couldn't use swamp. No, I don't know what it was called. I don't even remember how they resolved the whole conflict, or
Marsh
if they
being.
did.
Right, yeah.
Quail Man was probably in there.
Oh,
But
sure, yeah.
that's the closest I got to the Swamp Thing
But
original.
anyway, yeah, that's what I remember as being like the first kind of superhero comic that I had come across, and which is, and then eventually into like I was also super into GI Joe comics.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say the first one I have a very clear memory of is probably going to be equally as strange to your Swamp Thing. That is Alien vs. Predator.
Oh,
Is actually the first comic I distinctly remember reading. I was exposed to those R-rated films at a probably
me too. I loved
age.
Predator as a
Sure.
kid. I loved Predator.
But this was the thing is like before I was even really cognizant of them as full movies, I was aware of the Alien and the Predator and their adversarial nature. Like Alien vs. Predator was almost my introduction to those two different franchises because I definitely read those comics before I had seen any of the movies in their entirety.
I feel like I need to come up with a better story, which also reminds me that
Yours
was
is heartfelt and like from your family.
Is
I
sweet.
was left alone in the library for hours on end, and I discovered Alien vs. Predator.
Yeah, I guess.
I was just being shown movies that were way inappropriate for me at a young age.
Yeah, I guess.
I
That makes
I was
sense.
like 4 years old, and I loved the movie Predator.
Really?
Oh yeah,
That's
I love when he put the
That's
mud on
shocking
him at
to
the
me.
end. And
That's
stuff.
so shocking.
Real fan of Schwarzenegger and Mud, huh, John?
Yeah, big time, big time. Any movie with Schwarzenegger and mud.
Now, does
How
it
many-
have to be that mud, or can it be any mud?
It can be any mud.
any mud can. But what
that
mud can
from?
keep
Was
you
that-
from Predator? That's
was that Parks and Rec?
When
Yeah,
Andy's
yeah.
asking
Yeah.
Ron, and they ask him if the ATM is that actual robots or if there's people inside of it.
So the Alien vs Predator comics though.
Yeah, no, the original. There was like an original run of Alien vs. Predator comics.
Yeah, that was Dark Horse stuff. right?
I have the omnibus right behind me.
Very
Actually, and
He does, in fact.
Confirming for the listeners who can't see us.
confirm my comic book collection. Okay,
It's there.
It's
Um,
beautiful.
looking right
but
at it.
the reason I bought that is because I had the original like 6 or 8 issues, whatever it was, in like issue form, and I remember like reading the first couple of them at the library, and then my parents went out of their way to like buy me them because I was into comic books and like, oh, he's reading, good for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of memories of picking up comic books at the store.
Yeah,
The grocery store. They were right by the register, and it was. I don't remember following. This is actually leads me to my next question. Do you guys remember? I mean, do you have a specific point where you started actively following a comic of some sort, like on a? Because the first thing I remember actively like following as it was going, like as a story arc, was the death of Superman.
yeah. The first one I remember like going out of my own personal way because there's like comics that my parents would consistently buy me when I was growing up.
Yeah. I mean, I had like random, like I love, like Batman and stuff,
Sure.
and it would just get random Batman issue. But the first time I remember actually following, like on a month-to-month basis, was the death of Superman.
Mine was probably Civil War. Like when that was all rolling out, I was like really into comics. I was starting to really get into comics at the time because I'd always kind of been into comics as growing up.
Yeah.
But like when I went out of my way to devote my own time to like reading these stories and getting to know these characters. Then Civil War started, and I was like, "Wait, what's going on now?"
Right.
Like,
Yeah, that was big. That was big.
Oh, it was huge.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if I really necessarily understood crossover events quite yet.
No, I don't think I knew anything of that. Like, I don't remember ever. I mean, there was
Crossover events happened. Like that goes all the way back to like
sure, but that was the first one I remember really, and then subsequently going back and reading things like Secret Wars.
Sure,
yeah.
But that one especially like hit me because like, holy shit, this is serious.
Right? Yeah, that was
Cap and Iron Man. Don't please.
Yeah. That was
Mom,
hard.
Dad,
That was
don't
heartbreaking.
fight.
Yeah, exactly. No, it did feel like that for sure. Yeah, I mean that also you kind of talked about there with Civil War. That is there that point when because I think a lot of kids grow up with comic books, at least
In
to
one
some
form or
extent.
another, yeah.
I mean it's a common bit of childhood, but is there a specific moment when you're like, oh, this is not? Because I kind of remember like in middle school there being like, oh, I'm not stopping like I'm not growing out of this in some way. This is always
welcome to me with all of my nerdy pursuits.
Yeah.
That was a very big moment for me in middle school. It was like, oh wait, I still enjoy video games and comic books and all of the Pokemons.
Right. Yeah, no, that
The various Pokemons.
yeah. I mean, did you have that, Donovan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I embraced that from the beginning.
When it was like kids were starting to get interested in other stuff, I'm still interested in the stuff that like 5-year-old me was interested in for the most part.
Yeah, maybe slightly different
Dinosaurs,
tone.
superheroes.
Yeah.
I mean, the list.
But I mean,
I just don't
stop
understand
there,
why
but-
people stop realizing that those things are awesome. Like
No,
that's my thing. Is like when people are like, "Whoa, isn't it a little childish to read comics?" I'm like, no. What do you do with your free time? Do you have friends? Do you hang out with people? Like, what are you doing that's so important?
Right. No, I think that's exactly how I felt as well.
Well,
where-
Donovan, there's these things called sports, and it's a tribe mentality that.
So
Really,
you played sports.
I played sports as well.
Did you? What did you play?
I played 7 years of lacrosse.
Oh
John,
wow.
that was just to get my parents off my back so I could keep reading comic
Wow.
books.
Yeah.
No, I did both.
I just plowed ahead. No sports. No, it's all about comic books. That's it.
Yeah, I just
That's it for me.
You made a very rational in 6th grade. You was just like, well, this is me now.
Well, there was a distinct point I think in sixth. It was about 6th grade where where it started to become uncool to like these things,
Sure.
and you sort of have a decision to make that I see where you can either go like no, yeah, those are stupid, or you just go hard line into it. And I went as hard into it as I could.
Lean into the nerd as hard as possible.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, no,
Embrace
okay,
it.
keep making fun of me. Like, I don't care. I'm going to be talking about Batman Beyond. Like,
Yeah.
But see, here's the thing: is we are the people that if these superpowered suits ever happen and these organizations sprout up, they're going to want us. They're not going to want
Oh,
those
yeah,
other
yeah,
people. So I'm cashing in on this check that could be years and years away. Don't cut yourself short.
Well, I'm not cutting myself short. I'm cutting nerddom as a whole. There's way too many of us at this point, and I think the organization would just be bloated and over bureaucratic.
Well, they
and it just
know.
wouldn't work
They
out.
know that we're true believers.
I'm not.
They can weed
I'm
us.
not even talking about our skills aren't being represented. I'm just talking about the sheer number of employees would be too much.
yeah, no, I think you're right. And that's actually
know
brings
if I
me to my
believe
point
that.
now, which is, what's it like to be a kid now? Because it's so okay. It's so become pop
I
culture that
Don't think they even care
we
anymore.
were just a few years away from everything we liked being the absolute no. I mean, for God's sake, Guardians of the Galaxy is the highest has the biggest domestic gross of any movie of this year. Guardians of the
Because
Galaxy.
It's awesome.
It is awesome, but that is about as
Soundtrack.
obscure as it gets.
Chris Pratt.
Talking tree.
Yeah, I mean,
the
it's
list of things in that movie goes on.
It's an amazing movie. I'm not
Yeah.
besmirching the movie at all, but just in what world was Guardians of the Galaxy going to be this? I mean, that's pretty. That's
the
a
world in
deep
which
cut.
Guys who are slightly older than us grew up and got control of
Exactly.
the
That's the
Hollywood
thing. There are
machine.
guys the Whedons, the Guns. These guys won for us.
But I mean, you think the movies and things you grew up on, like Alien versus Predator, Terminator, things like that. They were around a long time, and people were watching those.
no question about it.
Aliens.
I was super into RoboCop.
Exactly. It was always there.
Yeah.
People always like those things. They just didn't like to tell people they like those things.
I was just having a conversation about this the other day. That really, there's always been an appetite for this stuff. It's just that the technology caught up with it. Because you go back
In
to
1920, Tarzan went to the middle of the earth and fought dinosaurs and Ant-Men.
Right. I mean, even talking about characters specifically, you look at the old Superman serials or Batman or the 1950s Superman television series.
Sure.
There was always an interest in it, and they were always striving to do it. They just couldn't.
But up until a certain point that we've hit in the last, say, like 20 years, it's always been kind of a, oh, but those are for children.
I think that changed probably with the '79 Superman.
You think so?
I think that was a legitimate film, and having people like Marlon Brando and Gene Hackman in it, that said something. And then that was completely solidified with Burton's Batman.
Yeah.
I
that was because that was reclaiming Batman to its like original dark roots
And making a movie that's
stuff.
not almost not at all for children. I mean, it was like my favorite movie as a kid, but not. Once again, I was also watching Predator and RoboCop, so I was a very disturbed child.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that movie. I think those two movies are hugely important. They started the ball rolling, and then things like X-Men and Spider-Man carried it completely.
But I also think the last couple of years we've seen a rise in like changing from this could happen and whatever you can believe it to like no, this is how it would happen if it were to happen. You know,
Like the Nolan Batman.
exactly.
Stuff,
Like
yeah.
we're now this kind of quasi realism moving in that I think people are now like, well, that's cool, that's a good idea, as opposed to like before it's like, well, you're older than 8 and you believe that there's mutant Ninja Turtles living in New York, and you're like, yeah, everybody knows they're there.
But they're still there apparently.
They're still there.
Once again, based on box office performance of the summer. Yeah, that's a conversation
Second side of the podcast.
that's a conversation for a
But
different
I
day.
mean, the idea that
No, I know what you're
there's
saying.
these things moving to like a if not
Right.
saying that they're going to happen, but if they did, this is how it's going to be, and then people are. I feel like people are buying into that.
No, I think that's
But then
that's true.
with Marvel, we're seeing this kind of, I'm not going to say opposite turn, but this turn towards the fantastical.
You know,
that
I don't think-
they're reclaiming the fantastical to be like, so long as it works within its own context, the fantastical is
well,
like,
but
still
But
super
so
entertaining.
slowly.
I was going to say one of the things
slowly.
that's been very smart about Marvel is they start very real world. You look at Iron Man, and then things are being introduced into it, so you still have that starting place of this is the real world, and then with each movie, new crazy things get added
And
into
you've got
it.
the idea of like, well, these people call it magic and we call it science. Like, the idea, well, it's still magic because we don't know how to prove it, but at some point we're like, we're going to be able to figure that
That's
out.
Clarke's third law. It's like any significantly advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Right.
It's taking that concept to the nth degree.
Which is
Right.
awesome.
Yeah.
And people are buying into it.
But that's why I'm really interested to see what happens with the Doctor Strange movie, because he's kind of the character who is, no, he's the Sorcerer Supreme. It's legit magic.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what they do. I mean, the things I've heard about are, I mean, they keep talking about cosmos and stuff like that.
Sure.
And
The infinite possibilities of creation.
right, and I think the answers won't be there, but
But we've also.
the answers could be there. Is sort of the way I see it, and that makes sense to me. I mean, that like it could be explained, but once again, we just don't understand it, and we're not going to try to figure it out either. I
Well-
think that's going to be the big thing.
And I think the smart thing they've done too is the first step into like the bizarre and strange is Alien. You're going
Right.
to things like
They
what
went-
if on
they went-
this world they could have these things happen because gravity is different.
Right? They
Yada,
went,
yada,
they
yada.
went cosmic before they went like magic.
So now you've got
Which is funny because, like, traditionally in the Marvel Comics realm, the magic stuff has always been way more, like, I'm not going to say blasé, but grounded in their universe than the
Oh, yeah.
cosmic stuff,
Oh,
which
yeah.
has always been way out there.
Oh yeah.
No, but they went for it and it's super successful. You've got
Like, who
Thanos.
read Realm of Kings?
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, I mean, if the rumors are true, that's what the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie is
I know,
going to be.
and that's insane.
Yeah,
I'm so excited.
I would. Yeah. Do you also remember when we were kids? There was a lot of period piece superhero movies. The Rocketeer, The Shadow, The Phantom,
But I think that was a throwback to
the Indiana Jones kind of thing.
yeah, exactly.
It was just interesting that was like the superhero movies I grew up loving were like old pulp characters.
Yeah, why didn't they make a Doc Savage one? That's my question. They
They're
never made.
They're still trying to make a Doc Savage
They're-
movie.
Really?
Yeah, the guy who did Iron Man 3, Shane Black,
Wants to do Doc Savage?
Oh, man, he's kind of perfect.
He's written a script for Doc Savage.
That would be so awesome.
To sort of once again introduce you, the listener, to our tastes and opinions about things, we've compiled. Yes, that's the correct word.
Compiled.
How about constructed?
Built.
Any of these words are
Erected.
fine. Gorgone,
Erection.
Further away.
Oh.
Further away.
Wrote?
Wrote.
yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Once again, identifying yourself as the thesaurus of the show.
I know many words and synonyms of those words.
I think that makes you a thesaurus.
Not antonyms?
Sometimes antonyms. I tend to not be as friendly with the antonyms.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we put together these lists of 3 separate top 5 lists, although they're not really ranked or ordered necessarily.
Mine is a globule fashion of just like, I threw 5 things on a page.
But sort of to give you an idea of the kind of things we're into, so when we start talking about stuff later on, you're like, oh, he's the guy that's that guy.
Yes.
He's the guy that's that guy.
He is the guy that is that guy.
So I'm gonna take us now to our we're just gonna call them top 5 lists.
Okay.
And the first category we're looking at is our 5 favorite writers. Now, we didn't really discuss specific criteria for these lists.
Yeah.
I the way I wrote mine is I wrote the top 5 writers that are currently writing comics right now. What am I? Once again, if that's not what you guys did, once again, we didn't describe, but that's just to let people know that's where I am. So if you're like, where's Alan Moore? Blah, blah, he's not really doing anything in comics right now. He's writing his 5,000-page novel about Israel and recording weird music albums.
But again, this is our favorites, not necessarily who we think is the best, because I think we can separate those.
Oh,
or
absolutely.
at least I definitely
Absolutely.
can. Is like, I can recognize that the ones on my list might not be the best in their field, but they're the ones I enjoy the most.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I think as well. And so, what I'm just as a preface, though, the ones I'm are people who are currently writing comics that are being published.
Sure. And if we might have some overlap on this.
Absolutely.
So if any of us has like one that the other one has, probably speak up and say, "Oh yeah, that was also on my list."
Yeah, sure.
Great.
Okay. So Donovan, you want to kick things off with your first favorite writer?
Sure. I think one of the ones I
Oh, hang on. Did you have any criteria specific? Like I said, like I was doing people who are currently. Did you have anything that you had in mind when you were writing this?
None at all. Just I mean, you said
A slight nod.
Hey, no,
and
that's-
then
you
you
that's
said
none
general
at all.
top 5 or 5 to
Absolutely.
discuss. So
I just if you had
I
anything
feel like
to preface.
most of my references though are kind of all over the place though. So I might reference things that are long buried for a good reason.
Oh, that's fine.
However, Jeff
Longburied sounds like a great last name for some kind of explorer.
long buried.
I'm Jeffrey Longburied.
I think that's perfect.
That guy has to be an archaeologist.
Oh,
Yes.
of course.
No.
He's a finder of lost antiquities, John.
All right. So Donovan, you're first.
Well, Geoff Johns, I think, is somebody that I have huge respect for.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everything he writes I think is golden, but helping with the reboot of the 52 and Aquaman in particular, we'll get to
Yes.
that later.
Yeah.
Kind of making that a legitimate character again. I mean, there
that's-
was some in the 90s with the whole hook hand and the long beard and the sun and
Alrighty,
Black Manta.
Aquaman.
Exactly. Pirate Captain Aquaman.
That's kind of his thing, though, Geoff Johns. He's brought back a number of characters because his relaunch of Green Lantern was also
Yeah.
amazing.
Which I didn't say, but one of the first things I ever tracked with as a kid was, like, as soon as I read the first Rebirth Hal Jordan stuff,
Yeah.
I just had to read all the other stuff after that. So
yeah, me too. That's amazing
yeah.
stuff. I also love. He's not on my list, but I do love Geoff Johns.
Geoff
as well.
Johns he's great.
Oh yeah, his Justice League stuff. He's sort of the king of DC right now.
Well,
Yeah,
'cause
he's
he's also
creative.
like helping out with their television department. isn't
He's
he?
there. He's like the liaison. I don't know what his
Creative liaison, I thought, or creative director of DC
I think
Comics
it's
right
creative
now.
director. So he's the guy in charge of making sure DC is properly represented in all their endeavors when it goes to other mediums.
Which we've seen pretty well through all the TV shows. I said
the TV shows are all great. Don't get me wrong.
Pretty
And
well.
we've seen one movie.
And we've seen a movie.
One movie.
Sure.
We can't make too much judgment
No,
about what they're doing
I get that.
based on one movie.
You mean the first and maybe only movie?
This is a conversation for another day.
Yeah,
but
sure.
yes.
Okay, great.
Anyway, yes.
However, with that one movie, it was pretty close to accurate on a lot of things, and I think Geoff Johns probably had a big.
Snapper.
I think he had a big hand in that. That's right. Thank
We're
you.
gonna put that down as a topic to discuss on another episode.
Yes, absolutely. So Geoff Johns would be the first on that list that I,
Perfect.
like I said, I have great respect for.
Gorgone?
I'll start it out pretty like baseline, as in terms of an actual comic book writer, and that's Greg Pak. I mean, he is responsible for one of my favorite runs on Hulk. I mean, Planet Hulk, for God's sake. He's done a lot of different work over the years. One of his recent collaborations was with the musician Jonathan Colton. He basically got into a Twitter conversation with him and is like, all of your songs together kind of make an awesome story. And then Jonathan Colton said, well, maybe you should write it. And Greg Pak said, well, maybe I will. And so he did. And it's sitting right over there on my shelf because I kickstarted the...
Oh, very cool.
It is, in fact,
project.
sitting on his shelf, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Donovan.
Once again.
That's what you're here for.
But yeah, no, basically anything that man writes, I'll read because he gave me one of my favorite comics of all time, which is Planet Hulk.
Yeah, and he's at DC now. He's doing. He's writing
Yes.
Superman and
Yes.
Batman and Superman.
Mm-hmm. Which I haven't read either of those yet, but I will soon.
I have read Batman and Superman. It's pretty good stuff.
I've heard great things.
Yeah, it's really good. He's going back and writing like the first meeting of them
Excellent.
as characters, and he does a really good job of mixing those two characters and their separate personalities.
Interesting. So he's kind of doing like a Year Zero thing, but with Batman and Superman.
Yeah, specifically their relationship.
Cool.
It's really good stuff. All right,
John, what do you got?
The first writer I have is Kelly Sue DeConnick, who I think is one of the best writers at Marvel right now.
Yeah, definitely.
With Captain Marvel,
Oh, man.
certainly. Also, her Avengers Assemble comic I like a lot.
I have not read that yet.
She has a great creator-owned book called Pretty Deadly as well. And I haven't read Bitch Planet yet, but I hear that's pretty awesome.
Sounds great.
I do like the term "bitch planet."
Yeah, I have not read that yet, but that sounds really cool. So yeah, I've loved her stuff, and yeah, I think she's doing a great job over at Marvel, and it's also awesome to see the sort of recent crop of female comic book writers with her, and then G.
Gail
Willow
Simone?
Wilson, Gail Simone,
Gail
G. Willow
Simone's
Wilson, who writes Miss Marvel. There's a lot of really interesting voices coming out, and I think particularly Marvel is doing a great job of finding these interesting people and letting them do what they want to do and do really creative and interesting stuff.
That's
So,
great.
Yeah.
Comic book company is making good comic books. What a novel idea!
I don't understand it at all. Donovan, you're next.
Yeah. Somebody that's more local to our area, but everything I feel like is gold, is Craig Thompson, writer of both Blankets and Habibi. I'm not sure if he's working on anything else right now, but
He releases a comic like every 8 years, so I don't know.
and
But they're like opuses.
They are amazing.
yeah,
no, they're
they're-
incredible comics. But so who knows? We'll find out in 5 years if he's working on other.
yeah.
comics.
Anyway, I mean anything, and he is also an illustrator as well, so he does both sides of everything, which is
Oh, I'm endlessly fascinated by
fairly
artists,
impressive.
by writers. You know, writer
fairly
illustrators.
impressive.
On a completely sidetracky note, and I apologize, but I noticed one thing is that as we're all making these points about our favorites and things, we're all like slowly nodding at the microphone.
Yes.
As in agreeance with the people who are speaking. This does not translate into a purely audio medium.
Sure.
Just
I don't-
make
you'll
note
hear-
of it.
you'll
Yeah.
hear
I'm
our
not entirely
disagreement when
sure
it
it
happens.
needs to, though.
No,
Yeah.
it's something I noticed. Just us nodding appreciatively. So if the listener can just, if anytime anyone says anything, if you don't hear us speaking immediately, it's
It's a
because we're
nod.
nodding
Yeah,
appreciatively.
yeah.
And if you hear like a deep, we're not eating fried chicken here. We're listening.
I can't promise that.
We can't promise that, but we'll most likely not be eating fried chicken most of the time.
Most
Okay,
of the time.
I apologize for interrupting you, Don.
No, that's fine. No, like I said, I just think Craig Thompson, with his writing, his illustration,
Oh, he's fantastic, yeah.
much more in the kind of alternative genre. He's not writing, heroes. Nobody's superpowered.
No.
But
Very, very personal.
Makes-
sometimes autobiographical with
Yeah.
blankets.
makes everything kind of fantastical inside of a normal realm of.
I mean, yeah, Habibi's unlike anything I've ever read. Really.
I mean, we'll get to that later, but that is astounding.
Yeah, it's an incredible piece of work.
That's
I still
something
need to read it.
I always give to people to read because I'm like, you need the
It's an incredible
You've
piece
wasted
of-
your life.
It's an incredible piece of writing and artwork.
Wait,
really.
what?
You've wasted your life if you've not read this.
Oh, okay.
It's
Gorgone, you've wasted your life.
you've wasted your
Well,
life.
then,
I hate to
I'll
break
just-
it to you.
I'll just go dig myself a hole right now and hop right in.
No, I'll loan it to you. We'll remedy this.
Donovan can save
But just
you.
know you're a shell of a human being until you filled yourself with the
Donovan, we
what
already knew
is-
that I was a shell of a human being, but you're saying there's a way to fix that.
yes, with a 45-pound tome.
Oh, it's huge. I had
7.5 years. I think it took him to
I think
write.
I have shoulder damage from carrying it in my bag.
It's gorgeous. It's heavy. I mean,
It's an amazing piece
Is
of
it a
work.
book you could beat a man to death with?
Oh,
easily
Because I really appreciate a book you could beat
more
a
than
man
a
to death with.
5 or 6 foot drop above his head. I think would instantly.
oh yeah. We're not.
Nice,
It would no
nice.
time at all.
Yeah. Excellent.
No time at
So-
all.
That's a good. That's criteria. That's actually one of the criteria I have for my
Good
favorite
book.
books.
Good murder weapon.
Yeah.
That's it. You're going.
I guess let's keep with Donovan's theme of a little bit more out there. You'll notice that trade over there called Creature Tech. One of my favorite writers / illustrators is Doug TenNapel. You may recognize his art style because he's the guy who originally designed Earthworm Jim.
Oh, yeah. Which was awesome.
Yeah, and his book Creature Tech is one of my favorite comics ever, like hands down. He mostly does like big, thick, just like the graphic novel, like what you traditionally think is just like, it's not really an ongoing series, it's just like a book and that's it. But everything he's written I have enjoyed. There's like Creature Tech, Monster Zoo. He's not exactly steady. Like he'll come out with a book every couple of years, and I know he's tried to do a couple of webcomics that have kind of petered out, unfortunately. But everything he's written I've really, really loved. And
I like Creature Tech.
What would you call a genre? I mean, does he stick to a certain kind of voicing?
And then here's the thing: is like there's generally a conceit to each of these books. Like Creature Tech is kind of about like these guys who are researching the paranormal and kind of a BPRD situation and a story that happens around with that. But he doesn't necessarily stick with a particular genre. Like sci-fi fantasy is generally how it goes.
Cool.
But yeah, he's definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, he's good. I mean, I haven't read his other stuff, but you gave me Creature Tech a while back, and I really enjoyed that. Yeah. My next one is Greg Rucka.
He was very close to being on my list
I
as
did
well.
not put him on my list. But
Just a fantastic writer. He's been all over the place. Marvel, DC.
One of his books is definitely on my books list, though. So
Yeah, I mean, he's just amazing. The collaboration between him and Ed Brubaker on Gotham Central is one of my favorite books ever from DC. His Queen and Country, his long-running spy comic, is fantastic as well.
I still need to finish that. I read like the first 3 trades.
It's really good. He's just he's consistently amazing. He's one of those people who is, if his name is on something, I'm going to pick it up for sure.
his crime and cop stuff is pretty awesome. I mean, you've got Whiteout. You've got
Whiteout's amazing. Yeah.
Stumptown.
I love Stumptown.
You've got and
Stumptown's
then
one of my
Gotham
favorites.
Central.
Yeah, no, he is. He definitely. I saw him speak recently
Did
at
he
a convention.
do Fatal?
No, that was Brubaker.
That was Brubaker. I always get those two kind of mixed up a little bit. But
They're
you can-
kind of
you
the crime
understand
guys.
why.
They're kind of the crime
Yeah.
guys, and that's why their collaboration on Gotham Central was so perfect.
Yeah.
I saw him speak at a convention recently where he talked about his great love of the detective genre and the noir.
No.
Yeah. And he talked about he's studying that in school, like writing papers on the noir detective. But he frequently he's also known as being a real feminist writer because frequently his detectives are women, which is not super common in the hard-boiled detective genre.
Strong women are awesome.
That's true. It's going to be a theme of the podcast, I think. Now, if only we could get a woman on the show.
No, they don't talk to us. It's a problem.
All right, Donovan.
Oh,
Your
yes.
next writer?
That's why I was pointing at you.
Oh,
Donovan.
great! You're pointing at me, and I was stunned. We were talking about women, and you pointed at me like you had something to tell me. I was
I think
like,
we were all pointing at each other. We were doing real well, just signaling each other, and then
No, I think I
Then
was
we
more
screwed that
shocked
up.
that Donovan, you're not a woman.
yes.
What? That was why you were here.
Recently, there was a recent change.
Oh,
We're
I
gonna
hope
have
that doesn't void my presence
to,
here.
I think we're gonna have to rediscuss
all
how
of
we're
those
doing
love
this.
letters.
Oh no!
I know. I cry every time, Gorgone.
All right, Donovan, you're next.
Let's talk about Jeff Loeb. I feel like
Loeb.
there's anybody else put him on your list.
No,
He's
Nobody
not.
else put it.
No.
Oh my gosh!
And
I
you
mean,
know, you know why? I don't care for the way he spells Jeff.
yeah, it's
is that
he's pretty.
that Jeff with a G? I just can't. I'm sorry.
No, it's Jeoph, right?
No. Just Jeph.
Oh, that's right.
His
Oh,
name.
that's even weirder.
His name is
that's
Joseph.
right.
Oh,
So
took
he
out
didn't
the-
go with Joe or Joey.
Yeah,
He went with
or
Jeff.
Seth.
Seth.
yeah. He
Never
was
see a good Seth.
You know, yeah.
Seth Loeb.
I feel like that sounds like a medical condition.
No. If there were more,
Sir, I'm sorry. You've got a terrible case of Seth Loeb.
No, don't tell my wife.
if there had been more than 5, Jeff Loeb surely would have been on there. He's been.
He was
on
like
my
in your waiting room because I feel like obviously growing up and reading like Long Halloween,
Yeah.
Dark Victory,
Hugely.
anything.
Yeah.
I mean, even his Catwoman stuff is awesome. And then he's a creative source on a lot of shows. And
He's in charge of Marvel Television.
yeah,
It's all this
exactly.
stuff.
So
This is all him.
You want me to
Agents
tell
of
you
S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff.
why he wasn't on my list, and you're probably not going to like me for this reason?
only if you wink at the end of it.
It's not as bad as John's hatred of how he spells Jeff.
That's yeah.
But
Please, if Jeff Loeb, if you're out there, we still want you on the show.
yeah, please.
this is going to be a super nerdy
That's what we
because Greg Pak was like
Oh,
my
no.
number one. It's because Jeff Loeb was writing the
Oh,
Hulk
no.
post World War Hulk
no.
at the same time that Greg Pak was writing like a concurrent Hulk series, and I feel like his was really working to undermine what Greg Pak was doing with the Hulk at that time.
Was anything confirmed, or was that just your
No, it's
initial
how I
impression?
interpret it, how I read it.
So there wasn't like an animosity that you learned about.
At least I don't think there was.
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
That'll be a
So it's an imagined.
This is an imagined slight against me as a Hulk fan.
It's like a
yes.
prestige situation where you've got one trying to upshow the other person
Right.
but with Hulk comics, not magic.
Yeah. Greg Pak is Christian Bale, and Jeff Loeb is Hugh Jackman.
Who's the Michael Caine there? Who would be the creator?
Stan Lee.
Lee was the Michael Caine.
Yep.
I want to see that movie.
I do too, actually. That'd be awesome.
Really? So, but I mean, you have respect for what he's written.
Oh, and
outside
don't get me
of that.
wrong, like
He just didn't make your list.
A lot of his comics are some of my favorites.
I mean, the three colors books that he
I
did:
mean,
Daredevil
Hulk
Yellow,
Gray
Hulk Gray.
That's
See,
Hulk Gray is probably
I'm
my favorite
reading
Hulk comic
Spider-Man
ever,
Blue
actually.
for the first time right now.
which
Never read
is,
through it.
which is incredible.
It's really great.
That's probably my favorite Spider-Man comic. Really, I mean, that may be my favorite of each. Well, I don't know about Daredevil. I'd probably have to go with the Frank Miller stuff. But Daredevil Yellow is also really amazing.
It is.
But Spider-Man Blue and Hulk Gray are probably my favorite books of both of those characters.
Wow.
I know you're a Planet Hulk guy,
and he
but,
didn't make your list, John.
I still really love Hulk Gray.
You're starting to make me regret not putting him on there.
Well, I mean, I don't want to do that.
I think
but is
because
it working?
Donovan
Is it
Eilert
working,
guilt trip.
John?
I think because I went with the criteria of people who are really doing stuff now. He's not really writing comics so much anymore.
Sure.
I know he just had a run on Nova maybe like a year or two ago. That's the last. He's really
busy making awesome television shows
true.
that everybody loves. Sorry, John. Sorry.
Yeah.
Great. Anyway, so he was numero
Loeb.
trace on my.
Jeff Loeb. Yep.
Who do I got? I think this is kind of an obvious one, but one of my criteria was I was looking around at my comic book collection and I tried to like, who do I own the most of?
Mm-hmm.
And the name that kept popping up dozens of times.
I think I know who this is.
Brian Michael Bendis.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
Makes
it probably
sense.
doesn't help that I own the entire run of Ultimate Spider-Man and like his entire runs of both like Mighty Avengers and New Avengers, and it's just like
his Avengers run was legendary.
so good.
I mean, Venom Bomb is one of the funnest like little storylines I've read in a while.
I think I just read one of the newer Guardians of the Galaxy that just got published, and that was
Yes.
him.
Yes, he's writing
he
Guardians.
That was
everything.
great.
He's
that was
writing
really
Guardians
great.
and X-Men now.
I just finished that like a week ago.
His Guardian stuff is fantastic.
I don't know if he made any of your guys' lists.
He did not make my list.
But probably maybe the most prolific comic book writer. I mean,
I cannot think of another guy who's written as much as him.
all the stuff he's done at Marvel, the creator-owned stuff, Powers.
Powers is one of my favorite comics of all time.
And this new comic is United States of Murder Incorporated. It's all about the mafia. Ooh. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but it's coming out in a collected version soon. That sounds amazing. I mean, the guy, I don't know how he does it.
I'm sure there are interviews where he details how he sits down and writes everything.
And he teaches a class on writing comics right here at Portland State.
Good for him.
Yeah,
Does he really?
Yes, he does.
How often does that happen?
You have to be a specific kind of student.
What does that mean?
You have to be in like a specific program to get
Well,
into it.
I'm sorry, level Mason.
No, but
Your blood type, it has to be.
You can't.
O
Unfortunately,
negative.
you can't just take it. But I did talk to
we
somebody
can see.
who had taken it and said it was amazing.
I can only assume.
Yeah, and he just put out a book called
Does
Words
he live
for
here?
Pictures.
He doesn't
Yeah,
live here?
yeah, he
Actually,
does.
just came
Brian
in after
Michael
Christmas.
Bendis lives in town.
Brian Michael Bendis lives here in Portland, and
You didn't
once
know that?
again-
What's his address?
Let's get him on the podcast.
Let's get him on the podcast.
3489 Southwest. No, I don't have no idea.
Like what? How have you not told me this?
And you haven't memorized that. That was the best part.
I go there every night and dig through his trash, so I should hope so.
But no, I mean certainly. Once again, Bendis is somebody that I thought about
He didn't.
putting on for sure.
He didn't make my list. Not to give an excuse here, but I'm much more into the DC realm. That's kind of what I grew up with, and he's primarily Marvel. In fact, right?
I think entirely Marvel.
Besides his creator own stuff.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I don't think he's ever written anything for
DC. I don't. Not that I know of.
No. I think
Anyway, so
I don't know.
I think he's just a Marvel guy.
So he But yeah, I
he's
have
definitely on
deep
there.
respect.
Yeah, I know
for
you're
him.
primarily a DC guy, which is something we should. I mean,
Yeah, DC
We should
and
address
Independence.
that. Stop it.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I like them both. I'm not somebody who won't read the other. I mean,
right,
of course, I will only refer to Marvel as the other. You know.
right.
Do you read DC or the other one?
That other one. So the next name on my list is Ed Brubaker.
Yeah.
who's been consistently one of my
Got
favorite writers.
Rucka and Brubaker on there.
I have read, yeah, I do, because
It's
they're
telling.
I do love crime stories, and both of them have written some amazing Batman stories. Because I love Batman when he is a pulp crime character, but Brubaker also makes my list specifically for his Captain America run, which I think is the best Captain America run anyone's written. That's a defining.
It's tough to top that.
I mean, just taking the beginning of it, which is Winter Soldier,
Yeah.
and then it just continues to get amazing through there, and eventually into Death of Captain America, and when Bucky's Captain America. It's really incredible stuff, but
it's almost too good.
It really is amazing.
Because you look at some of the other Marvel stuff that was being written at the time, and like that was all happening through Civil War and stuff, and it's like there were some good books that were happening there, but like Captain America was really blowing everything out of the water.
And that hadn't been the case for a long time. He had been a
Right.
character that kind of fallen by the wayside, and he's a character that, if written incorrectly, is the most boring character they've got. Really, he can be
Like
really
Superman.
He's very similar to
with that.
Superman, and he has to be written in a very specific way so he doesn't become a bland, goody Boy Scout character.
Right.
And I think he really embraced the espionage aspects of it. He's writing a book right now called Velvet. That's a creator-owned book. That's an espionage book that's amazing as well. If you really liked his Captain America run, I highly recommend Velvet. He's primarily doing creator-owned stuff now. He's not really at Marvel these days, but consistently one of the best writers I think around. Your next name, Donovan?
Yeah. Grant Morrison made my list. Not just for, he's done a lot of things, but one recently I read, I just forgot the name of it, where a little hyperglycemic boy goes into a fantastical world.
Joe
What's
the
that?
Barbarian?
Joe the Barbarian, thank you. Yeah. That was awesome.
Great
and that
comic.
was completely unlike what I had read, because he sticks to the bigwigs of Marvel and DC and kind of takes over the reins there, and it does a great job.
His
but
Batman run is one of my favorites.
is amazing.
Yeah.
And some of the Nightwing stuff he writes into there. He
All-Star
really,
Superman's also.
Yeah, and I
Did
just
he do the Black Mirror?
No, that was Scott Snyder.
No, Scott
Yeah.
Snyder. Goddamn, Scott Snyder.
it's so good. Anyway,
We're going to talk about Scott Snyder in a little bit.
Yeah.
So I've got a deep love of Batman, so he comes in with that. And
Morrison.
super well, and then again with the independent stuff. When I read that, I was like, man, he's got some more chops than I think people give him credit for.
Have you read Arkham Asylum?
Yeah,
That's amazing.
It's
It's an incredible Batman comic.
it's perfect.
And also, going way back to like Animal Man was one of his early defining things. Yeah, he's Grant Morrison consistently. He's another guy who he didn't make my list, but he's somebody who I'll definitely pick up
Well, that's the
anything
thing
he's
is, like,
writing.
if our lists were like 25 long,
I had a hard time
We'd
getting
have a
it
lot
down
of
to-
crossover here, but
it is
what's
interesting that so far we haven't
had any. Yeah, I was just going to say that.
But no, he's somebody whose name will get me to buy a book for sure.
oh yeah, no, definitely.
Because he's always going to do something interesting, and he's totally insane, which is great.
Grant Morrison.
Yeah, in the best way though.
Yeah.
Well, in the, like Mark Millar kind
He
of
takes
a
the
way.
More in
big
that way.
risks.
More
He
in that
takes
way.
he goes for it.
rather than the Alan Moore way.
Well, I mean, we can't all be crazy cave hobos.
Not all of us.
He definitely won't hear this. So
I don't know,
Somehow, Alan Moore finds an obscure podcast somewhere on iTunes.
while living in his hobbit hole,
Right.
many spies have many eyes. Everybody.
Oh dear.
That could be Radagast. I feel like Radagast the Brown depicted in the Hobbit movies is maybe close to what I feel like Alan Moore could be like.
It's like the bird poop in the hair and
Yeah.
like talking to
Wouldn't it be
hedgehogs.
great?
Hedgehogs.
Wouldn't it be great if it was an all an act and he's just a super normal guy who likes
Is he
watching
playing like
movies
a
and stuff?
Joaquin Phoenix?
See,
He takes off the beard and the wig.
Oh my god.
It was all for a movie.
Yeah,
the whole
exactly.
time.
He's been doing this for a documentary.
He has people call him Al.
Wait, hold on. When
Okay, yeah. So he's
when did Andy Kaufman pass away? Because is there any sort of crossover that could happen? Is
Oh,
there any
man.
sort of? Can you
He's-
imagine?
he just is the great creation of Andy Kaufman.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it probably roughly around the same time that he emerged on this.
what about that?
It would have
Andy
to be.
Kaufman got tired of movies and television and went into comics. Now he's into cave trollism. Cave troll.
Yeah,
cave
whatever.
trolling. Cave trolling.
I'm gonna call it cave trolling.
Yeah.
he's trolling caves.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Is he
yeah.
married? I wonder what his wife's like.
He has a child because I think his daughter writes comics, if I'm not mistaken.
What is she like?
I don't know. I haven't really read it.
Does she want to be on the show?
Yeah, I bet we could get her.
Feel
And
like-
I
except I think
don't want
it'd
to
be
talk
really-
about her comics. I just want to talk about her dad.
And I think that could be awkward.
I think that would upset her.
So what
Something
was
tells
it
me-
like growing up with Alan Moore. Like, yeah, no, that was a good book he wrote. Yeah, whatever. But
Sure,
Does
yeah,
he make chicken pot pie? Does he cook for the family?
I don't even want to talk about his work. I just want to talk about what the man is like.
What is he like? Does he give you hugs? Does he have a collection of birds? Like,
Alan Moore's famous bird collection.
I mean, it could be famous.
Why not?
We just don't know where it
I
exists.
wish he would talk about it.
It's like
I
the
wish he
Bermuda
would-
Triangle.
I really wish Alan Moore would talk about his birds more.
Yeah, come
Anyway,
on.
I feel we've gotten away from Grant Morrison, though.
Yeah, okay. I think Grant Morrison.
Who sort of, to me, feels like kind of the opposite of Alan
Thank
Moore.
you for stretching while I peed.
I was not going to acknonge it, but okay.
I didn't
I
feel
will
like we were.
always acknowledge
I didn't
my
feel like
pee,
we were
John.
stretching. I felt like that was a pretty normal conversation about the
Alan
daughter.
Moore's birds and stuff.
I feel like Grant Morrison is the crazy on the opposite end of the spectrum of Alan Moore.
Well, the other thing
not
too is
quite
he has
Frank
such,
Miller either.
He has such love and respect for the characters and the worlds in a way that I don't get from Alan Moore. Alan Moore seems to want to destroy all the
But
characters in the
he
worlds.
has good reasons. I feel like. I
Have
feel
you
like
read the last volume of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen
Yes.
with the Harry Potter stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have not read that.
He's nuts.
Turns out Harry Potter, the Antichrist. Who knew?
Yeah, why not?
Well, I mean, that makes so much sense this entire time. What? Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, I think we all agree Grant Moore. He was not on your list either?
No.
Okay. Well, who is
right.
the next person on your list, Bob?
Haha. Well, John.
Transition.
Mine. This one I felt a little weird about.
Okay.
I shouldn't because he is legitimately one of my favorite comic book writers, and that's Joss Whedon.
Oh, yeah. No,
you
totally.
know, he was close to my list as well. Any of the
Absolutely.
Whedons,
Oh yeah. No, I mean,
I love all of them. I love all three Whedons.
all three.
I
Whedons.
think. Let's see.
And
Has
four
Jed
if you
actually
count.
written any of the comics? Because it's mostly been Zach writing the comics.
Oh,
I think-
I don't know the answer to that. I want to say Jed wrote some part
I
of.
thought
No, maybe it was
Dr.
Zach, the Dr. Horrible. Yeah, I was going to say
that's
Dr.
what I
Horrible.
thought. I saw.
You might be right.
That might have been Jed. That might have been Zach, though. I think that might have. I don't know.
But anyway,
We love all Whedons.
All Whedons.
all Whedons
and all are welcome to
Wheatons.
come on the show.
But yeah, like right over there in that pile that I compiled,
It's there.
is
Donovan, you're slipping.
Oh, he didn't reference something. I'm not keeping factual.
you'll see Joss Whedon's Frey.
It is in
is a
fact in a
fantastic-
pile that
fantastic
Gorgone
comic.
just pointed with. His hand indicated where it was.
There you go.
But that was like this weird little thing of like, okay, here's something that's technically set in the Buffy universe, but when it came out, there was no real context for it, so it was just this weird thing that he wrote.
I read it just as a Joss Whedon. Like I
Right.
just bought
And
it because Joss
and
Whedon.
it was awesome. But then, like a season later in Buffy, we see the Scythe show up, and we're like, oh shit!
Right. Yeah.
But like all the stuff he's done with like the continuing Buffy comics, the
Which is so
continuing
good.
Angel comics,
His astonishing X-Men run.
his astonishing
It's
X-Men
one of the
run,
great
I mean,
X-Men
yeah.
runs ever.
So yeah,
I know.
mean,
I
all
totally
the
valid
Firefly
choice.
and Serenity continuing stuff. Though I know
Yes.
Zach Whedon's also writing a lot of that.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
really
I don't want to
op-
get off on a tangent, but have
he's
you read
really-
Leaves on the Wind?
Yes,
I have not read it.
Wow.
I have not read it.
It's
Yeah,
incredible.
it's good.
I'm sure it is. He's really kind of capitalized on that. Well, you can kick me off television, but you can't stop the story.
You
know?
can't keep Joss Whedon down.
You really
Absolutely not.
can't.
No, he will
because
just
then he'll
keep-
go and make Avengers, and then
You can't take
Own
the
the
sky
world?
Yes.
from him.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, you can take his love, you can take his land.
You know? What else can you take?
Well, I mean, there are other things.
I think you can probably take him where he cannot stand.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. You can take him out into the black and
Yeah.
tell him that he ain't coming back.
Yeah.
but he doesn't care.
There's
He's still
something
free,
about-
you know?
And you really can't take the sky from him.
No, that was legitimately my senior quote in our yearbook.
Really?
It was actually.
You can't take the sky from me?
It was the whole lyrics about "Take my love, take my land."
How did they let you print that?
Yeah, it's in there.
Wow.
It is in there under the senior quote.
It seems too long.
It's
Go
like
for some brevity, John. Come on.
no. It
He
has-
actually copied
it's
over
not
to
all
the
of
next
it.
person's quote. They got bumped out. It was something about their grandmother, but
Yeah.
really it's the second half of
Poor
that lyric.
Sarah Campbell didn't get what she had. Right.
John, what do you got next?
My next one is Mr. Scott Snyder,
yeah, Scott Snyder.
who has kind of burst onto the scene in the last few years.
Yes, he has.
With the best Batman run ever.
Best Batman run. I mean, it's an amazing. Just the three arcs that he's done so far have been some of the best Batman comics.
Yeah.
Real, I mean, ever. Starting with Court of the Owls.
Oh, Court of the Owls is so good, but Year Zero is
Well, and then Death
freaking
of the
blew my
Family,
mind,
and then
yeah.
0 Year. It's been incredible. 0 Year, yeah, blew me away because I think like everyone, I was a little bit like, oh, going back and Batman
yeah, like-
origin story. It's incredible. It's the J.J. Abrams Star Trek of Batman comics.
And like up until that got written, I would say that like having someone try to like retread what year one did would have been sacrilege.
It was total blasphemy, and he even knew that.
Right.
That's why he called it 0 year, not year 0.
Right, and I was misquoting.
That's fine. But he also he had a good run on Swamp Thing as well, which was his creator-owned comic, American Vampire.
Oh, American Vampire is really good.
Yeah, which you mentioned earlier, Batman: The Black Mirror.
So good.
Is an incredible comic as well. The guy just keeps getting better. I haven't read Witches, his new creator-owned comic, but I hear that's incredible. People say it's the scariest comic ever written, like legitimately terrifying in a way comics have trouble being sometimes.
I would like to test that theory.
Because Lock and Key has kind of like held that title for a while.
So far, has been pretty.
Yeah, I hear this is sort of the successor to that in a lot of ways.
Spiritually,
yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
No, it has no connection to the plot. But I'm saying like
wait,
the
what?
successor to if you miss Lock and Key, Witches is kind of going to fill that.
How do you miss a comic? Just go read it.
Well, no, I mean if you miss reading new chapters in
yeah.
Lock and Key, it's like a TV show,
Sure,
or anything else. So yeah, Scott Snyder would definitely be one of my top writers right now.
Yeah.
Donovan,
We're on to our last round.
This
This
is
is
our
no
last
crossover. This is so amazing.
This is amazing.
I feel like I
can
could.
promise you that my last one is not going to be the same as either of yours.
We have to make a wish after this. Like I feel like that's the only. So
Find a three-way wishbone.
that's exactly right.
Donovan.
To polish it off, we're gonna go with the great Welsh wizard himself, Alan Moore. I mean, and it's a nostalgia thing, I think, as well.
Welsh wizard. I'm sorry, I can't get over that.
I remember getting Watchmen for Christmas, having no idea what it was.
Did your parents have any idea what it was?
My Uncle Paul did.
Okay,
See, you come back to Uncle
yeah.
Paul. Who's
Good Uncle Paul.
And he gave it to me. I read it straight through.
Which is really the only way you can read that,
And
I feel like.
I mean, you 3 panels in and you like cannot put it down. It's like zaps onto you like electrically. But I also remember it the first time in my life, and it's happened a couple times since, but finishing it, putting it down, and sitting in silence for like 10 minutes in my room, just like
yeah.
had the back of my head just felt clean off, like had no idea what was going on. So I think that, and then you've got V for Vendetta, you've got Swamp Thing, I mean, which is great. He did Doctor Who for a while. I mean, he's all over the place. I don't know. For me, he's
done some really good stuff with like Lovecraft, like the Neonomicon stuff was super weird, and I loved it. What was the superhero cop one he did? Top 10? Was that what it's called?
Yeah.
That's
he
really,
did
really
From
awesome.
Hell, which is another
From Hell's insane.
another murder weapon comic
Yeah.
book as well. With a couple hundred pages of prose, it feels like at the end explaining it. I mean, that's what
It turned out he was wrong.
his use of which is fine, but he almost justified it in a way that's like, wow, you're right, even though you're wrong. But
Whatever, yeah.
But his use of prose, I think, also in comic books is really engaging thing that I don't see people doing in an effective
nowhere
way.
near. Yeah, nowhere
exactly,
near to the
like what
amount that he's
like
doing
what
it.
he does. So I think that for me, I think Alan Moore.
Yeah.
Again, there's some nostalgia there, but also
He's legitimately amazing. I
He
mean, there's
is-
a reason he is Alan Moore.
yeah,
And I believe we already covered his birds earlier.
yeah.
Gorgone, your last writer?
And this was kind of a sticking point that we discussed a little bit before, because this one I feel like is a bit of a weird one, because it's not necessarily comic book. He is a comic writer.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean...
And that's Gary Larson, who wrote the Far Side comics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just feel like those comics really got me on a mental track when I was a kid that formed into the sarcastic shell of a man who sits before this
noticed
microphone
that.
today.
We'll fill that shell.
That makes a lot of sense. I remember reading those, too. I mean, I don't think they were quite as impactful for me as they were for you, but...
Right, but it's just like, I remember getting those collections, like Beyond the Far Side, and like The Chickens Are Restless, and Wiener Dog Art, and really just devouring those, because... Quite honestly, I don't think any of our local newspapers had the Far Side in them.
I don't
that
think
was
so.
really my only exposure to the comic.
My mom had a desk calendar with the Far
Well,
Side.
yeah,
That was the only...
You always get the calendars.
Well, sure, but I'm saying that was my
I had a
only exposure
t-shirt.
to it as well.
I had a T-shirt with a panel
I'm jealous.
on there. It's pretty
Very
cool.
cool.
Gift from Uncle Paul, I
But
believe.
yeah, I think he's definitely...
Okay. We gotta get him.
He
on
would
there.
love to be on this podcast.
We gotta get him on this podcast.
Can we call him Uncle Paul?
Yeah.
Excellent.
He can just be the podcast uncle.
The podcast's uncle?
The podcast's uncle.
I hope every podcast has an uncle.
They will now. We're going to start the trend.
Who is Mark Maron's uncle?
That's Mark Maron. He's his
Okay.
own uncle.
He's his own uncle. Some podcasts have their own uncle.
Yeah.
Their own uncle. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So the last name on my list is Matt Fraction.
Okay.
We made it all the way through this.
Yeah,
Well, it's
with
incredible.
Zero crossover.
Zero crossover. Matt Fraction, just
Something
in
Marvel
the
has never been capable of.
in the last few years, he's very quickly became my favorite writer.
Oh,
I
yeah.
started
He's
reading.
writing Hawkeye, is that right?
Yeah.
He's
Among
now
other things.
he's now done writing Hawkeye, but his
Okay.
Hawkeye run redefined that character in a way that and comic books in many ways. I mean, he really broke the formats of everything that I've seen before, with the way panels are laid out, with the lack of dialogue in stories like the Pizza Dog mystery.
Oh, I love the Pizza Dog.
Exactly. So that kind of stuff. But even just like I first started reading him with Invincible Iron Man, his run on that, which was excellent.
The Extremis stuff.
Yeah. No, that wasn't him. That was
No?
that was Warren Ellis.
Oh, yeah. I should know. It's too insane to be Fraction.
Yeah. But then with his creator-owned books as well.
Like Sex Criminals
Sex
and-
Criminals, Satellite Sam,
Yeah.
Casanova. The guy is he's doing interesting and new things with comics when a lot of people are sort of settling for the same old.
I need to read more Fraction, I guess.
Oh, yeah. The guy
Let
is,
us not forget, he used Punisher to kill Stiltman.
his that's where he started with Marvel. His Punisher run is awesome. Like everything, he gets the characters and is able to do new things without being disrespectful or breaking them just to do it.
Right.
He really takes the medium of comics to the furthest degree and does interesting and new things with them.
And for that, we love him.
Yes, we do. And he also lives here in Portland. And
This would be the coolest podcast.
he's also the only, I believe, of any of our list, the only person to be married to another person on my list, which is Kelly Sue DeConnick.
Ah.
Does she live here as well?
No.
No.
I thought so.
She's actually a solid citizen of the Yukon.
Really? They just telecommute? Is that
Yes, with teleporters. Telecommute.
No, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
I was not. That was on the slip of the phone. Telecommute.
Nope.
So I think that does it for our list of the 5 writers who were.
And what a list.
Oh, it's
15.
amazing.
15 solid. No
That's
overlap.
incredible. All right, so let's quickly go through our 5 favorite characters, or at least 5 characters we admire and that we could put on a list.
Ugh,
Favorites.
This one was tough.
Yeah, this one was very tough for me as well. We'll go through these a little bit faster. So we're going to start with Gorgone on this one.
I mean, I got to start with the Hulk.
Yeah, of course.
I love the Hulk. He smashes. But it's more about the dichotomous relationship between him and Bruce Banner and how they just hate each other. And I've always found that interaction just the best. And it's something I really hope the movies go more into, because so far in the movies we've kind of seen the Hulk is just like a primal side of Bruce Banner, but giving the Hulk a personality I feel like is the next step that the movies have to take.
I feel like we'll have a discussion about that on a Hulk-related
Sure.
podcast later. First character on mine, I'm going to go with Hawkeye.
Okay.
Even before the Fraction run, I've always had a liking of Hawkeye, partially because of his old costume, which I always thought was really cool. But you gotta like the guy whose only reason he's on the Avengers is he's awesome with a bow and arrow. Like that
He
guy
doesn't miss. That's his superpower.
That guy is super badass.
Yeah.
Like almost more so than any of the other Avengers, simply because he has the least going for him, seemingly, but he kicks a ton of ass.
Oh yeah.
And he's awesome. And I love Ultimate Hawkeye as well.
Ultimate Hawkeye was interesting because they took that character and they made him more like, it's not that he uses the bow and arrow and doesn't miss. It's that he can shoot anything and doesn't miss.
Right.
Sure.
Crazy Millar logic.
Let's rip my fingernails out and flick them at a guy and kill him.
Yeah. That painful memories of that. I'm going to have to start with Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern.
That's right.
I think
Please say that your entire list is nothing but different Green Lanterns.
there are
John Stewart,
there are
Guy
several
Gardner.
Green Lanterns that I considered.
Okay.
Kilowog
Oh, of
almost made the cut.
Yeah.
Kilowog is really awesome.
He is really awesome.
What's the name of the squirrel?
Gosh, what is it?
I don't even remember
I
the
don't-
name of the squirrel.
I don't think.
What about the planet?
Oh,
That's it starts with an Moga?
Mogo.
Mogo, yeah.
Mogo is the
living
planet.
planet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was going to say Lobo, but that's completely different.
No, that's
But
a different
Mogo.
guy.
Mogo the planet. Yeah, he is actually number 3 on my list. Thanks for the spoilers, everybody.
I apologize.
Or they're looking for him
But
forever. and
you do
find
have a
out.
distinct love of Kyle Rayner.
For
Green
Kyle Rayner
Lantern,
specifically.
which is not a super common opinion necessarily.
No, people hate me. People hate me. I got into
They
a
hate you, not Kyle Rayner. They hate you.
for having the opinion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of Hal Jordan and John Stewart love.
Yeah, and they're
John Stewart is my Green Lantern.
here's
so.
Kyle Rayner doesn't have the
Actually, I'm a Hal Jordan guy, so between the three of us, we cover the range of.
I'm talking about the late night talk show host, not the.
He's a good Green Lantern too.
Yeah,
he's a great. His banter is really what you like. No, I feel like with Kyle Rayner not having the weakness to yellow, with having he has more fear
he's
than anybody else.
Sure.
I mean, he is like the outsider there, and then he's also the one to restart the whole thing to get Hal Jordan back to life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's not forget without Kyle Rayner doing what he did,
absolutely,
Hal Jordan would still maybe be
his
in a
use
grave.
of the almighty plot device.
Yes, that's exactly right. But he's the only one that knew was there.
Right.
Come on, Mogo, what are you doing? Just orbiting? Like, come on.
It's what he does best.
It's what he does best. So yeah, Kyle Rayner.
Very cool. Gorgone?
I mean, this is going to be an obvious one. Batman's
on.
I mean,
Yeah.
do we all have Batman? On our
I think
list?
we all have Batman on our
Okay.
list.
We're
We're talking Bruce Wayne, Batman.
I mean-
no, we're not pulling any tricks here.
we
with-
didn't rank these, but
and Azrael didn't make it in.
Yeah, I was about to
no.
say mine's Jean-Paul Valley.
Okay.
My favorite Batman.
we didn't rank these. But I have in the past described Batman as my favorite fictional character ever. So
Yeah, I mean,
favorite non-fictional character as well. I mean,
if you're listening to this podcast, I feel like you're just nodding and going, "Well, yeah, Batman."
Yeah.
because he's Batman.
no more needs to be said.
I don't think so.
He's the. I mean, yeah, he's the best. I mean,
Right.
really, because
at everything ever
yeah,
because he's Batman.
because he's
Yeah.
Batman.
I mean, there's so many things where I'm like, why did that happen? Because he's Batman.
So
I mean, he's the only character where I'm just willing to go, yeah,
I'm sorry if this spoiled something later down your list, John, but Batman is
No, that's
yeah.
not, he was on my
No,
list as
it
well.
was definitely where I think we were all heading there.
right. All roads inevitably lead to Batman.
Very true. So the next
If
character,
Man of Steel has taught us anything.
it's true. Everything's better with Batman. So the next character on my list is Wolverine
Okay.
because he's just, I mean, sort of. Maybe he's not quite to the mystique of Batman. Certainly not, but.
But he's got adamantium claws.
Right, it's sort of
Yeah.
another obvious one, but I could not
great.
put it on here. I've always had a great love of Wolverine.
Have you read Death of Wolverine yet?
I have not read it yet.
He's kind of prickly, you know. He's kind of like broody, prickly superhero.
Yeah, there's something. He adds an interesting dynamic to the.
It's perfect, you know.
I mean, look at the X-Men comic was not nearly as successful in the '60s when he didn't exist.
yeah,
So if Wolverine is in it, it works.
Yeah,
Of course,
well-
that was Marvel's point of view.
I mean,
for
really,
quite
he
some time,
became
actually.
he became about as close to a main character as that comic has.
Yeah, I mean, he's
his-
definitely the main character of like all of the movies, basically,
Yeah, because
except for First Class.
he's the big arc character, really.
it's interesting because he's not usually the audience surrogate in those movies as well. I mean, we could talk about this forever.
He becomes one in Days of Future Past.
A bit, yeah, but I mean,
he
you
is in the
definitely,
first movie.
you definitely, no, you start with Rogue.
That's actually true. He's closer. She's much closer to us because she's not as crazy
enough,
and
fair
violent.
Yeah.
Speak for yourself.
And she hasn't really come to terms with the mutant powers, you know. He's
right.
kind of knows what's
No,
going to
yeah,
happen.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. She was the audience surrogate in that movie. But yeah, I mean, I think Wolverine. But this is another character like Batman, where I don't know what really much probably doesn't need to be said, but
Sure,
he's awesome.
he's the best at what he does, and
What he does ain't exactly nice.
exactly.
Donovan.
That was beautiful the way you guys did that. I really like Duncan, who is the main character in Cowboy Ninja Viking.
I love that
very
comic.
You
cool.
gotta read that. He's just, I mean, maybe
Has
it's
the third trade of that come out yet?
I don't believe it is coming out.
What?
I haven't seen anything about that comic for years now.
There is a movie.
There's a movie.
There's a
coming
movie coming out? I did not
out. Who
know
they just
about
cast as the lead?
Chris Pratt.
Yep.
this. No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And different actors as the cowboy, ninja, and Viking.
That
also.
sounds perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that he's got a cowboy, a ninja, and a Viking living inside his brain kind of make him an awesome character because he's kind of four at the same time.
Right.
But him himself kind of dealing with that he's great. I think that, man, it's two collected edition runs. I just
No, it's a great comic.
beautiful, and if you haven't read it, it's beautifully illustrated, and I mean everything about it I think is really inventive.
Absolutely.
So Duncan, I don't know if they ever give him his last name.
I don't know it if they did.
Duncan last name.
Duncan last name.
Yeah.
Deadpool. It'd be the next one on my list.
Not at all surprised to see that on your list.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the Merc with the mouth. He's one of my. In terms of like how many comics of each individual character I own, it's probably edging in on Hulk and Spider-Man in terms of just like sheer number of comics I own. Most of his writers have done a really good job of capturing like the zany nature that is like kind of counterpointed by this tragic backstory of just like a guy whose past is continually being rewritten within his own brain.
I really like the Doug and Posehn stuff.
Oh, yeah,
I think
no.
they've really tapped into
exactly.
the pathos in him.
Yeah, exactly, and that's like,
And that's that because for me, some
part
of the
of the
wackier
character
stuff.
that I don't feel like the people who are just like casually aware of Deadpool really get about the character, and stuff that I can't really explain very well.
To me, the at least for me, some of the wackier stuff kind of doesn't do it for me as much. So that's why I mean it's okay, but like when they go full into that, so the Posehn Duggan stuff that's more a little bit more focused on some of the sadder parts of him stuff. I've connected with that quite a bit.
Right.
In addition to still having the goofy Deadpool kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So I think Deadpool obviously. So this next character was a character I was like, it kind of surprised me he made the list.
Howard the Duck.
Yes. No.
It was all 5 on mine originally.
It was a character though that I don't necessarily talk about a lot, but is hugely important in my life. And that's Spider-Man. It seems
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
John, really?
Yeah.
That obscure character?
It's not.
Ladies and gentlemen, for your just visual here, John's wearing a Spider-Man T-shirt right now.
I don't.
One of many that I've seen him wear.
Spider-Man shoes, Spider-Man socks, and I'm guessing Spider-Man undies. We can't confirm this, but
Yes. No, the thing though about Spider-Man is I think because he is so popular, it's sort of it seems like it's an obvious choice, or I thought about leaving it off, but I kept coming back to
sure. No,
Spider-Man
I completely agree.
is this hugely important character in my life.
I mean,
And that
I
television
literally
show.
just said Spider-Man is probably one of the most comics I own.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. But I don't necessarily talk about him as much, or have like when I get passionate about like a Snyder Batman run or something
Sure.
like that. But he's always there.
You know-
he's like a stalwart. You know, he's
Well,
just-
that's the thing is like so many people have written Spider-Man over the years that there's like not necessarily one specific run you can pick from, except for maybe Ultimate Spider-Man, which I feel is pretty.
or I mean, take it back to the beginning. The Lee Ditko.
Sure, yeah.
I feel like Spider-Man 2 is kind of broadly appealing for all American audiences. He's kind of this like
Yeah, Spider-Man
twerpy-
2 was very appealing for American audiences. It did very well.
I think he meant TOO.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes. Thank you.
The movie was very successful.
Yeah. Just the idea, that he's this kind of like everyday average person and something freaky happens to him, which I know happens in comics a lot, but
people
you
have talked about the full face mask. Anyone could be under there. I mean,
the idea that like,
he's
he
an
was
aspirational character.
yeah, he doesn't know his parents and the whole. I mean, he's pretty sympathetic, the character in general. So I feel like he's done well. I mean, there's how many television shows have been done?
Oh,
how many?
so many.
And also great. Even was it Spider-Man 2000? Was that what?
2099.
2099. That's
I
what it
believe
was.
the actual title of the show is Spider-Man Unlimited, and
Was it?
yes,
Well, the comic was 2099.
2099 was the comic. Spider-Man Unlimited was the cartoon
Got it.
show.
When he
and
went
it was
into
a-
space?
and it was a pile of garbage.
It was so great.
It
there was
doesn't
like
matter
an
because Spider-Man was in
He
it.
turned into an actual big spider.
Yeah.
He had the webbed things between. He had like wings. He was like kind of part flying squirrel Spider-Man. 10-year-old me loved it.
All right, Donovan, your next character.
Barbara Gordon.
Ah,
Barbara Gordon, great.
both
great.
as Batgirl and Oracle.
Yeah, absolutely. That's.
No, I agree.
I just think that she was great as that. There was the tragic and crazy awesome story of Killing Joke,
yeah.
and then she doesn't kind of fall by the wayside and become sidelined. She is, in fact, probably one of the most important people in Batman
Oh, very
comics
much, very much.
ever. I mean, she becomes kind of a second Alfred. It
Yeah.
feels like.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the whole like rewriting?
Have you read any of it?
I haven't read any of the new
It's-
Batgirl.
It's
no.
so
Amazing.
good.
So like
It's-
so getting kind of decreasing the importance of Killing Joke isn't necessarily a bad
No,
thing.
because you felt the implications of it for years.
Sure.
And it's not like she's just like, oh, my back's fixed. I can jump around. I mean,
Like
there's-
Batman did?
Yeah, exactly.
The
There's
effects
definitely
of Killing Joke are still being felt.
Okay.
Yeah,
In a different way, but yeah,
in
sure.
relationships and kind of how she sees herself as a person. I mean, like all these things.
The Gail
It's
Simone's run on Batgirl is incredible.
so good.
Yeah,
so
it's
You
very-
guys have the trades on that?
I do.
Yeah.
Gonna have to borrow those.
Yeah, I have the first two.
I have the
collected.
others, so
That's great. It's really,
you can read the whole run.
and she ties in beautifully with all the other
Hook
Nightwing.
me up.
Hey man, you got some of that Batgirl?
I need some of that sweet. Oh, this is coming off way rapier
Really
than I had
weird.
intended. So
You can't
see
let's
us
just
rubbing
stop.
our arms
Yeah,
like
no,
junkies
I'm
that
gonna
imply a
stop
different-
I
right
did not
now.
rub my arm.
All right, Gorgone.
Well, Donovan, you had Barbara Gordon, so I'm going to go with another G character, and that's Godzilla.
No, yes.
They're
very similar. Very similar.
Yeah, they both have like kind of tragic backstories.
Yeah.
They've both gone through a lot. They both breathe fire from time to time.
Police fathers.
Yeah.
That's right.
You got to go deep into the canon to see some of the Godzilla's troubled relationship with his dad.
Now,
who was
for
a
just
Tokyo
a moment,
cop.
imagine Godzilla with Gordon's mustache.
Oh, he's way better.
That's way better.
We got to email whoever's
And the
making that
trench
next
coat.
movie.
The trench coat and the mustache, I think, would make...
We got to get the email of the people making that next movie, really, because, boy, if they don't get that in there.
Yeah, sure. But no, Godzilla was one of my favorite movies growing up as a child. I was exposed to the Godzilla movies really, really young.
All 19 of them?
26.
There's 26 now? Now or originally?
As of today.
We could take 5 minutes and I can count them all in my head, but it's over
That's
20.
not, yeah.
Over 20.
But yeah, Godzilla was one of those things. Like, I was exposed to the movies when I was really young, so anything related to Godzilla was gold in my eye. But yeah, the original Dark Horse run with Godzilla was one of those comics that I picked up at a very young age, finding it at the library. And the stuff IDW is doing them with right now, being drawn by Matt Frank, is really, really awesome. And Godzilla, what was it? Half Century War is one of the best comics to be written last year, in my opinion.
Yeah, you've talked about that extensively.
Ad nauseum.
Yeah. No, it's great. Godzilla. Yeah, I think you're the only one of us who has a character who came in from a different medium. And I mean,
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
All mine were comics based.
Well, Bully.
so the last character on my list, because we already talked about Batman, is Captain America.
Okay.
Mainly because of the Brubaker run that I talked about. He
Yeah.
quickly became one of my favorites. But also, going back to the 70s with the Steve Englehart run.
He punched Hitler in the face. What more do you want?
But, yeah, Captain America. And he's continued to be amazing in the movies as well.
Yeah, I mean, pan media, Captain America has become a force now. Last Halloween when I was working, I saw little kids dressing up as Captain America, and something about that just made my heart sing.
It warms my heart to see that. I love
He's
it.
both an awesome comic book character and he loves America.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, he represents this really old school view of America, which I like.
We should dress up as Captain America on the 4th of July. I feel like
Yeah.
that should be the new tradition.
But he represents like America at its best when it was
Apple pie,
Yeah.
baseball,
that World War
popping
II
boxcars,
greatest generation.
I might be thinking of
kind
hobos.
But like that World War II greatest generation kind of guy, you know?
Sure.
yeah, absolutely.
So Captain America. Donovan?
Well, I guess I only have one more because the Batman fiasco of 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, what a fiasco.
It wasn't that. We were
welcome.
all expecting that. I put him on the list thinking, oh, this is going to be over quick. But is Hal Jordan Green Lantern?
There you go.
See, I like them both. Kyle Rayner, I mentioned first because I have a deeper fondness for him. But Hal Jordan, especially after he's been raised from the dead, is really pretty
He's
awesome.
amazing.
Zombie Hal
Like,
Jordan is
kind
very
of shattering the whole
shambling,
core.
yeah.
I mean, that's pretty awesome. And then the whole like Parallax and Sun Eater and like all these things that goes crazy. I mean, I don't know. Just Hal Jordan.
Hal Jordan's
That's
awesome.
all. I mean, that's what I could talk about a whole another hour about this.
I'm sure we will at some
I
point.
did a presentation in class once, and for my freshman English, I was in the independent like advanced section, and I proved them wrong.
Independent
by
and advanced are two words that don't necessarily equal a class.
yeah, it's exactly right. That's about what our teacher told us. Independent, advanced. We were the supreme. Anyway, so I did a 45-minute lecture on
Very cool.
Hal Jordan. That's pretty cool.
Very cool. Gorgone, your last one?
My last one is not necessarily a comic book per se, but it's web comics, which is something I'm very passionate about. I really love a lot of web comics. And one of my favorite web comics is Dr. McNinja. It's...
I know. I've heard of it.
Yeah, the guy who writes it actually has written a run on Deadpool. So, I mean,
cool.
there's a bit of crossover in the sensibility because Dr. McNinja is a doctor who is also a ninja.
Of course. As his name
Is he
implies.
Scottish?
Irish, actually.
Got it.
Oh.
That's when pirates invaded Ireland back in the
Mick
day.
Ninja, not Mac Ninja.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, great.
And they were saved by a wandering ninja who taught them to hurl frozen shamrocks as shurikens.
Really?
Yes.
Is that scientifically sound? Can we?
Yes.
Can
no,
we,
it works.
Really?
Yes. as is
Well, I know what
proven.
I'm doing when I go
if
home
you want to
today.
figure out how, read the, I believe it's the second section of Dr. McNinja.
They go into that?
Oh yeah, no, they go into the history of the McNinjas.
Wow.
I'm not pulling all of those facts out of my ass. This was stuff from the comic.
I mean, either way is not surprising, Gorgone.
But yeah, he's definitely
Very
one
cool.
of my favorite characters, just because he's like wacky and silly, but also is like, I'm a doctor, damn it.
Awesome. So those are our favorite characters. Now, normally our show would end with a recommendation, or it will end because this is the first episode.
Oh,
So it will end with a recommendation segment, but this week that'll be replaced by us talking about 5 books that we're really loving currently. So I'll start this one because let's just make that.
Are you just gonna go through your list? Are we gonna go one at a time?
No, let's keep going one at a time. Great. I think that's fine. So something I really like right now is Wonder Woman by Brian Azzarello and Cliff Chiang. Amazing stuff. It's become a family drama with Wonder Woman and Greek gods.
That's awesome.
Hippolyta, why?
It's very cool. It's very cool stuff. Donovan?
I guess it's ongoing. It's taking its sweet time, but Saga.
I mean, that's on my list as well.
That's on mine.
Yeah,
as well.
I was gonna say Saga right now.
I mean, that's just
and a little discretion. My list isn't always current right now, but Saga is, and it's consistently mind-blowing and consistently super engaging, even though I can't relate to any of the characters.
Why Brian K. Vaughan
And
wasn't
I
on my
can.
list of writers,
or any of our lists.
I'm not entirely sure.
I don't- yeah,
considering he's responsible for some of my favorite comic books, which like
I
Saga and
really
Runaways
debated
and-
putting him on mine.
Yeah.
Actually, like he if there were honorable mentions or once again like a 6th position,
Yeah.
then it's very hard to whittle this down to 5.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I love Saga as well. It's just once again it's doing stuff with the medium that's incredible, and Fiona Staples' art on it.
I was going to say
as well.
the pairing there is just like she enacts those worlds and just it's perfect.
Yeah, no,
It's really
it's an amazing comic. You're going?
I'm currently reading the Avengers Undercover, which is the sequel series to Avengers Arena by Dennis Hopeless, and primarily being drawn by Kev Walker, though there's alternating artists every couple of issues.
Right.
It's a really good series, and I think it's a good like cross-section of stuff between like covering popular culture and like, because Avengers Arena is basically just a knockoff of Hunger Games kind of.
Yeah, but a pretty good one.
But a really good one. And I mean, they even like talk about it in the issue. Like Arcade, the guy who's running, is like, oh, I read a kid's book and I got an idea.
Doing some lampshade hanging. and
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly. But it's like one of my favorite series that's going on right now. It's really compelling in terms of how it's taking these characters from the different, like, I guess, teen books, because it's like Avengers Academy and Runaways and just these different like super teens. And I think all of the characters in there are really well written and really, really well characterized.
Yeah, very good. So the next one on my list is Lazarus
That's on my list as well.
by Greg Rucka, and is it Michael Lark? I believe is
Michael Lark is the artist.
yeah.
I've not read this.
Just a fantastic
You've
book.
never read Lazarus?
No.
Okay, I'm
If-
going to stand up right now and hand Donovan the Trades of Lazarus.
If you're tired of dystopian sci-fi, pick this up
Too
because
bad, because this one's awesome.
because this is
Thank
it.
you.
Like I mean, this is one of the best pieces of dystopian sci-fi I've read.
Oh, it's so good.
It's just amazing. I mean, like it. I can't even. It's fantastic stuff. Check it out.
For right now, there's only 2 trades out at the moment. But,
Right.
I'll get back to you, ladies and gentlemen, on my update of.
yeah, once Donovan reads those, he'll give us an update.
We'll talk about it more. So, Donovan.
We talked about this super briefly, but the Batgirl run
Yes.
from the New 52 is just awesome. I mean, all the Bat stuff there, Nightwing, Batman, just everything has been great. But the Batgirl stuff, especially because she
Not a
was
big fan of Bat Horse.
really.
Yeah, not a fan.
Give the 5th one a try.
He's pretty good. He's getting pretty good.
He's.
I don't know. You got a little too My Little Pony for my taste.
We're gonna polish up those spurs. I think the next couple issues
Okay,
you're gonna
okay.
really see a new. No, I think I mean, she was one of my favorite characters initially, and I liked Batgirl and kind of all incarnations, even with Stephanie Brown and everything. But now we're getting back to Barbara Gordon, and it's super awesome.
Yeah. No, all the Bat Family stuff has been
It's
amazing.
really good, and it ties in so well. Like
Yep.
I don't know what order to read it, and I almost want to read like one at
DC
a
is
time.
not helping you out in terms of how their trades are come.
No, no, they're not.
Mild.
But at the
No,
same
they
time, it's really. I mean, it's great. So.
I guess it's over to me.
Yep.
Matt Fraction's Hawkeye. I mean, we
Yes.
talked about him when you were talking about Fraction, but that series is just so freaking good.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's just the latest trade. That's just
just Kate Bishop.
I'm starting to maybe like Kate Bishop more than Clint Barton.
I was just talking about
That's
Avengers
awesome.
Arena. One of my favorite series going into that was
Young Avengers.
And Kate Bishop coming right out of that, she was definitely my favorite character in those.
Her appearances in Hawkeye got me to start reading Young. I had not read that previously.
They're
and
so good.
It just makes me love her even more 'cause she's awesome. But yeah, the LA Woman trade is
so good,
incredible, and also almost entirely a reference to the 1970s Robert Altman film The Long Goodbye.
Sure.
Which is, but who's doing that? Like
That's Matt Fraction. That's
it's
who's
an
doing
amazing. It's an amazing comic. So next one on my list is Batman by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. Just Batman proper. There's so many other Batman comics, but that, like we talked about before, Court of the Owls, Death of the Family, Zero Year. I don't know what he's doing next. Whatever he's doing now,
I'm sold.
I'm sure it's incredible.
Batman Unlimited, was that him?
Well, he's been doing Batman Eternal,
That's it.
which is an amazing. That's sort of its own thing, but that's incredible. This guy gets Batman in a way, and Capullo's art. Because we were talking about Snyder before, but Capullo's art is fantastic. That guy, he used to do Spawn.
Yeah,
he just rocks it with the art on that. So,
man can draw a good Batman.
oh yeah, he can.
I just finished the first issue of Lock and Key. I know it's kind of done now, but man, that's good.
Such a good series. It's very
good. Actually, I went into a comic book store and I asked the guy, "Hey, I just finished the most recent thing of Saga. I couldn't put it down." It's like, if that's the case, I want to give you something that's going to be the same exact story. I was like, I was like, okay, great. And he kind of pitched it to me in like 10 seconds. I was like, sure, let's do it. And it's awesome. Terrifying and awesome.
Lock and Key is one of those ones, like, if you have a stack of trades next to you, you're not going to be stopping in between each book. You're just going to immediately drop the book you're reading when you're done with it, pick up the next one, go.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And see, I only owned the first one, so now it's like a scramble to get the next, next one. So it was awesome. You should read it, kind of Lovecraftian.
I
mean that.
Yeah.
It's Joe Hill.
Joe
is the
Hill.
writer on it. Do you know the artist?
Oh God, I'm blanking on that. I don't know.
I can't think.
I could run upstairs and go grab my copies, but I'm not going to bother.
He's great too, though. I'm really sorry we don't know his name, but he's amazing.
It's beautiful.
It's a great comic.
I guess my next one and last one, quite frankly, because we've had a bit of a crossover, is Rat Queens by Curtis J. Weeb and drawn by Rock Up.
I've not read this, but I hear great things about it.
Yes, I've probably talked to you about it before.
Yeah.
It takes like the old sword and sorcery setting and gives it a really modern sensibility that I really enjoy. It reads like these characters are being played by modern people playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Nice.
And that's Dungeons and Dragons is one of my favorite things ever. So this is right up my alley.
Yeah. Very cool. The last one on my list is Sex Criminals.
Fraction again.
Matt Fraction with art by Chip Zdarsky. Sorry.
Say that name one more time.
Chip Zdarsky.
Say it 3 times fast.
Chip Zdarsky. Yeah.
You got 2, John. You almost had it.
Yep. An incredible comic that's unlike anything I've seen before.
I apologize to Chip Zdarsky.
Chip
for
Zdarsky.
We love your
making
name.
fun of his name.
No, we love it.
He's a lovable Canadian.
He's a Canadian.
He's a
Zdarsky.
Exotic.
Zdarsky, yeah. Ooh.
A name like
It's an
Zdarsky,
amazing
it's gotta be
comic.
Good.
Like most of Fraction stuff, completely changing the way comics are done. It's hilarious. It's super raunchy, but it's really sweet at the same
A
time.
comic called Sex Criminals is raunchy?
It's
No.
It's raunchy though.
I just bought it for my nephew.
Please say he's older than 16.
I don't actually have a nephew.
But like
it worked.
it's super raunchy, but it has the sweetest heart to it. Though is the thing that's amazing about it. Almost in that like Apatow kind of way.
Yeah.
With sci-fi stuff, but almost the sci-fi stuff comes secondary to how much I like the characters, though. I mean, and Fraction's dialogue is amazing.
Always.
It's just an absolutely incredible. It's that and Saga are the two that I just keep insisting people have to check out. I also do like recommending a book called Sex Criminals. I find humor in telling people that they have to read Sex Criminals, which is part of the fun of it. Obviously,
of course,
they knew what they were doing when they named it that. They have a book out. They have a new book coming out that's made up of letters that have been written to them, and it's their relationship advice to people. It's called Just the Tips.
Interesting.
And that's
forward to that.
either out or it's coming out very soon.
Awesome.
Was that your last one? Because we had that.
Yeah, that was my last one.
Okay, so I guess I have two then.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Round us out, Donovan.
Well, one that's I'm going to recommend, even though it's not a current thing, is Habibi. Mm-hmm. I just saw it on the shelf at Barnes & Noble. I don't know if it's just because he's a local artist or if every Barnes & Noble does. If it does, go buy it right now.
Having just been back east and it's
probably
Barnes & Noble there, yes, they have some.
That's awesome. It's
sweet Habibi action.
It's beautiful. I mean, you'll cry, you'll laugh, you'll just feel all the feels in this book. It's heavy. It looks great.
They got to put out a new edition with that. You'll feel all the feels.
That's what
credited to you.
That's what it's like. I mean, it just is.
Let's just slap internet language all over some heartfelt, meaningful book that this guy poured years of his life into.
It's a story.
You'll feel all the feels.
It's this little
OMG.
This little girl who grows
throw
up.
an OMG on there.
OMG. It's this little girl who grows up in the Middle East and just like I don't know, her life there. You would not think that you could relate to these characters, but you can, and it's just like
a lot of the stuff we've been talking. It's unlike anything else really in comics.
I mean, there's
so many things that are unlike anything else. How are they like themselves? Comics.
Well,
whoa.
Boom. Mic drop.
That
walk
is
away.
the end of our podcast, everybody.
This is the first and last episode of Panel on Panels. I think it's over, yeah.
It's one of those things, too, that when you get to the end of it, you're like, oh my gosh, not only did he write this, but he drew and he illustrated all of this, and it just is...
and you can see it's the
rich.
work on the page. It's amazing. It's so dense with the art, the art of it and stuff. It's amazing.
It's
amazing.
gorgeous.
And you said you have another one too?
Well, and the other one, that was on the list is the new Aquaman run. We talked
the Geoff Johns stuff?
Geoff Johns kind of like making him not a fish.
I defend
talker.
Aquaman so much.
I do too, and I did before this came out.
Me too.
I did before this came out, and now I don't have to because I can just hand people that first volume, and they're like, "We get it now.
It's incredible.
We get it." He flips armored cars with a trident and leaps over buildings. Like
I'm
we
not
get
gonna
that.
lie, I still don't get it.
He's
have you read
good.
it?
Yeah, I've read the Geoff Johns Aquaman.
Oh my gosh!
stuff.
I don't know.
I love it. I love that they took this guy.
I'm more of a Namor kind of a guy.
Namor does nothing
He's
for me.
the worst.
Oh, but
Nothing.
Aquaman's fine.
Aquaman's amazing.
Yeah, and he's got the whole like love affair, and she's kind of crazy, and I don't know. It's awesome. I have enjoyed every
Me too.
panel of that. So
I highly recommend that as well. I think it's really good
I'm
stuff.
kind of currently
Do you know
reading, and I recommend.
Is that Ivan Rice doing that?
Yes,
doing the art on that?
who's
Or Ivan Reese, maybe? I don't know.
I couldn't.
Well, one of
pronounce
those.
it if you told me.
But yeah, I think
it
You
looks.
couldn't pronounce it if you told you?
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't listen to people.
Okay.
That's one of my many traits of not having things.
Start the list of traits that Donovan has. Doesn't listen to people is number one.
Yeah, remember that. Pay attention to
yeah.
that'll be one of the arcs of the show.
of the podcast.
Yeah,
we're assembling all of Donovan's traits.
We're gonna have very complex story arcs that need to be followed on a weekly basis.
You watch yourself, Jordan Campbell.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of this first episode of Panel on Panels. Have we learned things today, guys?
Well, no.
Good,
but
good. That's good.
moving forward,
We shouldn't.
I hope to learn things.
No, I really don't. I was looking for a no
This is
answer.
an educational thing.
No, I want to continue knowing the same amount of things that I knew at the
I just want to
beginning.
talk about them.
Yeah,
John, why would they invent Wikipedia if not to learn things?
yeah, fair point.
Just mic silence.
And silence. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for us here. I've been John Campbell.
I am currently Mike Gorgone.
I'm still Donovan Eilert. Thank you so much for listening.
Yes, thank you for listening, and keep reading comics, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Panel on Panels. Remember to subscribe to us on iTunes. Also, you can follow us on Twitter at Panel on Panels, as well as on Facebook at Panel on Panels. And if you want to email us, we are panelonpanels@gmail.com.